Welcome to principle number 2, law of correspondence. Law of correspondence is one of my favorite laws because it's one of the best tools you can learn that will teach you about yourself and therefore will teach you about the rest of the world. And I'll explain how. So first things first, law of correspondence says, as above, so below. What happens in the macrocosm happens in the microcosm. What happens in the microcosm in here will be a reflection of outside. Simple as that. There's a pattern in life that is found in everything. Golden ratio, Fibonacci sequence. What it tells us is that we can learn about the unknown through the known. The same way a scientist can sit in his laboratory and use math to determine the movement of the stars, we can use what we know about ourselves to learn about the exterior world, which is the most important, to me, the most important reason why we should understand this principle. And so that's all I'm going to talk about. How to use this law to determine who you are and how you see this world and how that is helping you and how that is destroying you. First, when we see people in the world and you want to understand, if you want to have better relationships with other people, I'll show you how it works outside of yourself. Ask people in your life, what do you think about the world? How do you see the world? And some people will say something like, it's a beautiful world. There's hope and there's joy and there's love and there's beauty. And some people will tell you it's a dog-eat-dog world. Life's a bitch. It'll chew you up and spit you out. So you have to grind, can't trust no one but yourself, etc. Now what we have to understand is that both of these are true to those people. We base the world off our experiences and off the conclusion that we've drawn from those experiences. So if a person was raised in a dog-eat-dog world, that's going to be their perception of it. If a person was raised in a loving, beautiful world, artsy world, that will be their experience of it. This is how we determine what other people have been through. This is how we improve our relationships with things outside of ourselves. Understand their viewpoint on the world and we will understand their world, because their conclusions of the world will broadcast that. Now, the important thing here is to say, okay, if I can tell how someone sees the world based off their interpretation, if I can base their world off of their interpretation, that means I can do it for myself. I can say, how do I see the world? What conclusions have I drawn about everything that's going on? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it serving me? Is it not serving? Life is a relationship. Everything corresponds to everything else. That's why it's called the law of correspondence. This is about creating relationships with others and creating relationships with ourselves. This principle is a tool to understand how you operate. And the importance of that is because you need to understand how you're operating in order to change that. I'm not denying your experiences, and I'm not saying that what you went through wasn't really terrible or really happy or really anything. It happened, and now we can only learn from it. We want to create new lifestyles. We have to create new outlooks on life. It's as simple as that. So I want to show you guys. I want to show you guys how to use this knowledge of the law of correspondence to change your world, to change your reality. And the first way to do that is to take a sincere look at your life. A sincere look, everything. Your relationships, your finances, your goals, your dreams, your desires, your what scares you, what drives you. Take a sincere look at everything and determine how you see the world. Determine who you are. You have to know who you are in order to change it. Who you are in order to work with yourself. Because even, I would say 99% of the things that I would say are wrong with me, I don't even necessarily change. I just learn how to work with them, because all strengths come with weaknesses and all weaknesses come with their own strengths. So, you know, when the time is ready for me to change something that it's just breaking me down, I'll change it. And I've done a good job with that. But this is about learning about yourself. Not good, not bad, just understanding. And if you don't know, like I said, take a look at how you view the world. What conclusions have you drawn about the world? If your conclusions about the world are uplifting, are hopeful, are progressive, or something that will build you, then you're on the right path. Keep up. If your conclusions about the world are dark and they're hopeless and they're negative and they're draining, then you should probably rearrange that. You don't have to know exactly who you are, because who you are is subject to change. What you do have to know is your outlook on the world. That will give you the best indicator of where you're at in life, your spiritual journey, your progress. Take that sincere look. Reflect, sit down, go for a walk on the beach, ask yourself questions and answer those questions that you've been too afraid to ask, that you've been too afraid to come across. And the second one, we absolutely must then take responsibility for our lives, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have to take responsibility. And I hated the word responsibility until way later than I should have, but I've now understood that responsibility simply is our ability to respond. How good are you at responding to things in your world? This is going to put the power back in your hands. Most people are slaves to circumstance. They are slaves to the exterior world. They are slaves to the stories that they tell themselves in their minds. They say, I am not where I am because of this, because of that. And what we are doing is we're relinquishing responsibility. We're saying, I'm not responsible for the bad things that are happening in my life. It's his fault. It's her fault. But what we are doing on an energetic level, on a level of broadcast, is we're telling the universe, I'm not in charge. We're saying, I'm not in charge of my life. And if we're not in charge of my life, then nothing's going to go my way. Things are constantly going to be out of your control because you refuse to take responsibility. You can't take responsibility for the good and not the bad. That's what people don't realize. You can't have half. It's all or nothing. The more we reinforce this idea, the more we tell the universe that I am responsible for my life and everything that goes on in it, the more we become creators. And it takes responsibility. Unfortunately, we have to grow up. We have to put our foot down and say, I am who I am because I decide. I make the decision. To decide is to cut out. Incision is to cut into. To decide is to cut out. I'm cutting out all the bullshit. I'm telling the universe, I'm telling myself that I am in control and that I am having the ability to respond to everything that happens in my life, and I'm going to respond in a way that is in line with where I want to be. I have new values. I have new goals. I have a new paradigm on this world. And every decision I take is going to reinforce that. Every conversation I have, every project I take on, every phone call I make, every email I respond to, every time I enter into something, I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring my best self. I'm going to bring the self that I choose, that brings me the most happiness. Because that is my responsibility. That's my responsibility. Which takes me to the third step in designing our lives based on this law of correspondence is once we learn to take responsibility for our lives, we take responsibility for our thoughts, for our conclusions on the world, and then adjust those conclusions, we use focus. Focus is just condensed energy. Focus collapses the waveform into the particle. We'll talk about this a little further, but the famous experiment in quantum physics where the observer collapsed the waveform into a particle, and the conclusion was the core of existence is pure potential. It's nothing in the sense that it can be everything, and we are made of that. And we collapse the reality by focus. Where water flows, food grows. So we have to water our worlds, we have to water our ideas, we have to water our relationships, we have to be keenly intent on, on the things we want. We can't slip, we have to be unwavering. Will, sheer will is the only thing. It's not easy. It is a great renunciation to live this lifestyle. It's not just leaving notes here and there. It's not seeing a seminar every once in a while. It's not watching a feel-good movie. It's none of that. It's hard work. It's will. It's persistence. But it's fun, and you learn and you grow, and you become bigger than you were yesterday. And you say, the conclusions that I made on the world in the past sucked. They did absolutely nothing for me. Yes, they were true, but they were only true because I wanted them to be true, because I needed them to be true, because it was a good excuse to not get to where I wanted to be. But I'm not happy anymore. I'm not happy using excuses to not move forward in life. I'm not happy relinquishing my power into things that happened 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I create a new paradigm. I create a new conclusion about the world. I change myself, and I focus intently on the new world, and I do not waver. I do not let it slip, not once, not ever. And then I start to change. I see things I didn't see yesterday. The sun shines a little brighter. The birds chirp a little crisper. I smell a little more sweet. Good luck. And it's going to bridge us right into the law of vibration, our next principle. So I'm excited for you guys to hear it. Thank you. I'll see you guys in the next video.